for attending today. We'll talk some advanced reporting tips and tricks for new admins. Just before we start, how many people here are full-time admins? How many are more sales or marketing background or job function? Operations, HR? Okay, so we have a good mix of people here. Just a little background about myself. Why am I here? And for me, that's really simple to answer. Salesforce has changed my life. So I'm a recovering sales manager. I'm proud to say I haven't begged a customer for a purchase order in almost 2 years, and I've never felt better. So I started teaching myself how to use Salesforce just to make my job simpler, and became kind of that accidental admin at a few companies that I worked for. Got to the point where I didn't want to do sales anymore, didn't want a quota hanging over my head, but really liked helping companies with the technology. So about 2 years ago, I made that switch. I started with Trailhead, got certified, spoke at Dreamforce, started a user group, all in a very short period of time. So anybody out there that's looking to make either a career change or you want to dive deeper into the ecosystem, it's totally doable. You just need to put in the effort. The resources are definitely there for you. So all the things we're going to talk about today, they're real world things that somebody asked me for a report and I didn't know how to do it. And every single one of them I found on the Trailblazer community that Holly mentioned in her keynote this morning. So it's a great way to find useful information. So we'll talk about cross filters, power of one, custom summary formulas, buckets, join reports, and custom report types. So cross filters, they allow you to filter reports by objects just instead of fields. The objects are dependent on the parent object of the report type. It's basically a with or without criteria that you're using, and it removes unwanted results from your reports. So our use case here, a sales rep needs to have activities attached to all accounts, contacts rather. So it's a normal SLA for a sales rep. If you have contacts in your name in Salesforce, there should be activities related to them. And we'll take a look at our demo here. So I had a sales manager that had a call every Friday, and he went through what you did, what you didn't do, and I hated it. 4 o'clock on a Friday, I want to crack a beer, log out, and do nothing. I hated these calls, and I wanted a way to kind of keep myself on task and make sure I didn't forget things, so this is how I learned about this report. So we can see our last activity column there. It's empty, and it's really just there to validate the results, but we're going to make sure we remove those results from the report in the actual cross filter itself. So when we open up our report here, we'll look right up top, and we can see we have that cross filter. So it's dependent on the parent object of the report types, and it's a with or without criteria. So we only see contacts there because it's a custom report that I created. If it was, say, an accounts and contacts report, you would be able to choose that initial. Then we're choosing what we want or do not want, so we have our with or without, and you can layer these so they can be stacked on top of each other so that we can select contacts without activities as well as contacts with cases. So if they have a case, they probably should have had a follow-up, whether it's a call, an email from somebody, so we want to make sure that happens. It's a really simple thing that some people don't know about. I didn't know about it at one point. Somebody had asked me for a report of all accounts without contacts. I had no idea cross filters existed, so I took an Excel spreadsheet and I highlighted every one that didn't have a second row. Not fun. So next is the power of one. This allows you to summarize and count objects in reports. It's a new custom formula field, so it lives on the object itself. I suggest you do it on every object in your org. And I think you should name it the same as the object itself, and I'll explain that in a second here. So a sales director wants a report that shows the pipeline summary by stage that breaks it down by opportunities, accounts, and products. So just kind of the health of the pipeline for the organization. We'll take a look at our demo. And I learned about this from Steve Molis. He's an MVP from Boston. Real fun guy to watch. Sorry about that. He credits Tom Tobin to teaching it to him at Dreamforce. So we're looking here at our report, and we can see we have record count here. I don't know what that's counting because we're looking at opportunities, products, opportunity products, so it's not really useful there. When we look at the rest of that, we want to know, do we have too many deals with too few customers, where if that relationship goes south, we're going to lose a lot of business? Or is it a new product coming out where it really heavily weighs our pipeline that we just learned is going to be delayed a month? It could really skew a quarter. So we want to get the clear identifiers of how many different opportunities, different products, different opportunity products actually comprise this pipeline. So we'll take a look behind the scenes, and there's 4 custom summary formulas. There's 4 separate versions of Power of One in here. And we can see there's no formulas within the report itself. There's no buckets. Now we'll take a look at how we actually created the formula itself. So we'll hit Setup. We'll pop over and we'll look at our field itself. And we'll open it up and we'll edit it. So it's going to be a numeric formula, and it'll have no decimal places. And then we can see in that big white space, the really complicated part is the formula itself. And all it is a 1. And all that just allows you basically to count the object to count itself. So it's really useful. I mentioned, do you want to name it the same as the object? So in that previous report where you had the chart there, we had opportunities, we had products, opportunity products. The first time I heard about this, I went and put it on every object in one of my orgs, and in every single object I named it the Power of One. So then I had 4 columns called the Power of One. I had no idea which was which. So that's why I think you should name it the object itself. Custom summary formulas used to calculate additional totals in summary, matrix, and joined reports. They're based on numeric fields which can be summarized. They're unique to the report and can't be shared with others. So unlike the Power of One, which sits on the objects, this only exists in the report, and if you need to use it again, you'd have to replicate it in another report. So depending on how much you're going to use it, you may be better off creating actual formula fields on the objects themselves. So you want to give the sales team a visual representation of where the sales are compared to goal. Very basic use case here. So we'll take a look at our report here, and we can see the vertical bars of what's been sold for that month. The horizontal line is the quota. So really, really basic there. This is a simple example where the quota is flat. Every single month it's the same. If it was varying by month or say quarter, we can make this more complex. And then we can see here, we have our columns. So amount is the only real field there. The rest of those are 4 separate custom summary formulas. So we want to make sure we give the team a clear identifier of, are they doing good this month, bad this month, right? So I had a sales director that was doing this in Excel, and I said, why don't you do it in Salesforce? And they didn't know how to use these formula types. So we open our first one here, and we can see we have ABS 500K. ABS just means absolute value. So whatever number you put in the parentheses there, that's what it's returning. So it's saying every single month our quota is 500K, and that's why it was in every one of those rows in the actual report. Percentage to monthly goal, just amount sum, so the amount that was sold or closed won, divided by that 500K. So it's dividing by the quota itself. Same thing for the annual. We'll have another one here where we'll show the absolute value for the annual goal, which is just $6 million. So it's 12 times that 500K that we had for our monthly quota. And then again, for the percentage to annual goal, we'll have the same return, just dividing that by the amount sum. So it's really simple, very user-friendly. Works great for companies that aren't using actual forecasting within Salesforce, and there's a lot of reasons why companies don't use it. So this allows you to kind of mimic that behavior. Buckets. They allow you to categorize a group of values. You can name each bucket custom. Doesn't require a formula or custom fields. And I compare it to the pipeline opportunity stages, how you say if something's in this stage, it goes to your pipeline and your commit, how you map those together. It's very similar to that. So you're tasked with creating a sales by region report. Opportunities from accounts in the US and Canada should go into NA, and all countries in Europe should go into Europe. So just a regional bucketing. And we'll start a report here. And you could do this with fields on the records themselves. So if you needed to use this a lot, you could just use Process Builder and say, by this country, put it in this bucket. We're going to do it in the report here. So we can see we have Europe, NA, and other. Obviously, other shouldn't be there, so we know we have some cleanup to do. But we want to make sure that everything goes into the correct place here. So we'll edit our report to see how we do our bucket. And we can see it right up there. We'll open it up. And it's called region, and we've used the billing country. That's the field that we're going to bucket. So you choose which field you're going to bucket, and then values get put into those buckets. So we can see we have NA here, and we have the USA there, and it's in green and matches the green at the NA, so we know that it's been put there. Europe, we can see France is in Europe, and that's red, they match. And now we have this checkbox, put everything else basically as other. So right now, France is the only country from Europe that's actually in that bucket, which is why we have the majority of the report values going into other. If we want to create a new bucket, we just create something called Asia here. We're going to search for a value that would go in there like China. Once the search comes up, we simply check the box next to it and move it to the proper bucket. We'll rerun our report. And now we can see that we have our new bucket. A really good way, like if you have kind of one-off reports where there's not a need to create fields or automation to populate those new fields, really quick and easy way to do this. Join reports. They allow you to view different types of information within a single report. You can create up to 5 blocks, requires report builder permission, not yet available in Lightning. Forward-looking statement, I heard that you'll be able to visually see it in Lightning with the summer release, but you will still have to create this in Classic. So the sales director would like one report that shows for the month, the year to date, and the last 12 months. So another way to do this would be simply on a dashboard. We have 3 charts for those time periods. This is a use case, and again, it's not available in Lightning, so we're going to have to switch over to Classic here. But some managers just prefer to have it all on one sheet in a report that gets emailed to them. So we'll take a peek at our report here. And we can see that we have our 3 time categories here for the month, for the year, and for the last 12, which is like a rolling 12 months. We have our close date, our amount, the op name. We have our grand summary totals at the bottom. So we'll take a peek behind the scenes and see how we create this. And we'll look up top here in our filters, right? So we'll move this down a little bit so we can see we have multiple layers of filters here. And they're just based on the close date and those 3 time periods that we chose. So we have the month, we have the year, and then we have the last 12 or rolling 12. And we can see that in the range. So really simple to choose your parameters there like you normally would use your filters in your reports. And if we wanted to create one more column here or one more block, all we do is drag one of those fields to the far right. So we drag close date over there. Now we can edit that name to what it should be. So we could call it last 24 months or last 2 years. We'll pop that in there. Now it's renamed, and then we'll just drag our 2 other fields over there to complete it. So really simple. Again, you can have up to 5 of these. We'll pull in our op name, then we'll run our report. We can see our new filter layer here. We'll select the correct criteria. So we're going to say this year and the previous year. We'll count that as our 2-year period. And then we'll rerun our report, and we'll see our new block. So it's a good, useful way to get a lot of different info into one report. And this is a simple example, sorry about that, where we just did close date. You can have different information points here, so it doesn't have to be the same in each of those blocks, so you can customize that. Custom report types allow you to create more complex reports not provided by standard reports. Include up to 4 objects. Primary and secondary objects must be related. You can choose whether that secondary may or may not have an associated record, and then you can select which fields are actually available in the layout for that report. So a marketing manager would like to see what activity volume campaigns are driving with the visibility to the contact level. So we'll look at this. So we know that we can look at campaigns and campaign members. We can look at contacts and activities pretty simply, but getting that visibility through a campaign to a contact to activities to really track what that's driving is pretty difficult to do unless you use a custom report type like this. So we can see here we're looking at our October newsletter. We have name, campaign, the subject, and the count of activities there. That activities column on the right is actually the power of one we talked about earlier on that object. So I use this a lot for customers for callback campaigns. So if you have an event and then the sales team needs to know who they call back, this is the type of report we use there. So they can clearly see if the person has been contacted or not right in the report, and it's really easy for them to get through. So we can see here, that's the power of one field there. We had our 3 separate record fields in there. And now we'll take a peek behind the scenes and see how we actually created the report itself. So we'll open up our custom report type. And we can see here, this is kind of what it looks like. We'll go under the hood a little bit here and see how it was done. So we're saying campaign is the primary object, and we're saying that must have related contacts to it. But then we're saying those related contacts may or may not have an activity. So we have 2 different layers of criteria there. So we'll close this out, and then we'll look behind the scenes at the actual layout. Because again, you can choose what fields you want to have in these reports. So you may have, say, commission fields that a sales rep shouldn't see, or personal identifiers that people shouldn't have access to. So you can always pull them off. So we're looking at our contact fields here. We'll drag that back in there. This again is the power of one field from contacts. We just drag it onto the layout here, hit save, and we'll be done. So really, really good way to get more advanced analytics out of your reporting. A lot of the out-of-the-box ones work great, but depending on what you need and the relationships among the objects, you may need to create some of these. Not hard to do, you just really need to understand what you're trying to get out of the end of it and kind of work your way backwards from that. So what results are people asking you for? And that'll help determine how you relate the objects and create the custom report itself. All right, so conclusion, I hope this helps drive some better business insights for your companies. I think it'll make understanding and visualizing the data simpler. It's going to bring a lot of value to your users, and most importantly, it's going to make your job easier. So thank you very much for your time, and let me know if you have any questions.
One quick question. I don't know how to do it, but it's possible that in the metrics reports, you cannot sort by grand total, because, for example, I can release from different sources, and I have AdWords or Facebook ads or whatever, and I have different numbers, and I want to sort the grand total in the report from the biggest one to the lowest one. I cannot do that.
In a matrix report, I don't know the answer. I know matrix ones can be a little finicky depending on what you need to visualize. I really only use them if I'm just trying to kind of show that chart and not really use the rows themselves. Otherwise, I try and do it in a summary report myself. Any other questions? Okay, I'll be up here for a few minutes if anybody has any.